Oh my God, look at that.
Does that make you feel better?
Since returning home from our travels, we hit the ground running. We completely rebuilt our yard and added raised beds so that we could grow vegetables. We fire mitigated our property with the help from Christina's brother Pete, and I completed several upgrades to our van, Clarity. During all of this, Lily's health was failing. We weren't sure if she had a respiratory infection or something more serious. After 3 rounds of antibiotics over 3 weeks with no improvement, we had to accept that at 13 and a half years old, she was coming to the end of her life.
So there's some sadness here. It's our first time out without Lily. Some of you know I made a community post about her passing on July 4th. And so, yeah, a lot of these firsts are challenging for me to not have her with us.
Lily had a remarkable life. She and her brother Galahad, who had been adopted by our dear neighbors Philip and Pam, were born on Thanksgiving Day in rural Washington. We dreamed of the pair growing up together in the lush landscape of the Pacific Northwest. Within days of bringing Lily home, it became apparent that she was struggling to eat solid food. She gagged and hacked each time we fed her. It turns out that Lily had a congenital defect that made it difficult for her to swallow. The variety of vets, surgeons, and specialists we took her to all suggested we put her down. How could I end a puppy's life who was otherwise healthy and full of life? How could I break my young son's hearts while they were still grieving the death of their father only a few months earlier? The answer I had for the vets was a solid no. No. Lily and I would figure this out together. I fed her small amounts throughout the day. Over time, she learned to eat slowly and finish her food over the course of the day. We couldn't cure her ailment, but she learned to live with it. She became a playful, loving companion to my sons, Austin and Andy, and she attached herself to me as my golden shadow. Life changed, and we left Galahad and our friends in Olalla and moved to Durango, where we all worked together, Lily included, to build our off-grid home, Twisted Oak. Lily's life was good, but not perfect. She struggled to hike at the higher altitudes without panting excessively, so she often had to stay at home. But she loved the boys and patrolling her territory by barking each morning and evening to let the wild animals know that she was in charge at Twisted Oak. The years rolled by and the boys left homeschooling for high school. I worried that Lily was depressed and she seemed old beyond her years. But a few years later, we adopted Jessie, a super high-energy puppy who changed our lives.
Oh, there's Lily. Come on. Keep making a path for me. Jessie! Come here, pup. There we go. Good boy.
I plunged into new research on dog foods and discovered a human food-grade, dehydrated, raw food that mixed with water was the consistency of oatmeal. It took some experimentation, but with Matt's help, we discovered we could feed Lily like a baby using a spoon. It was a miracle. Overnight, Lily's life changed. She looked and acted 5 years younger. We started taking her on hikes in the high country. No problem. She loved it. She romped and played with Jessie and tried to teach him some manners. The last 5 years of her life were truly her golden years. She was a gorgeous, vibrant, healthy dog. She traveled over 43,000 miles with us through the US and Mexico. She hiked through jungles and walked on pristine beaches with us. She always drew a crowd of children who wanted to pet her blonde, feathery fur. Her gentle soul soothed us and others who commonly asked if they could pet her. Lily was always at my side. Whether I was working at my desk, riding in the van, or watering the plants in the yard, she followed me from place to place, never more than a few feet away. She was my loyal companion for nearly 14 years, and her devotion to Matt was so very sweet. By the end of June, it became clear that Lily was reaching the last days of her life. She left with grace and dignity while Matt was holding her as she took her final breath. She joined her brother Galahad, who passed beyond the veil on Mother's Day. I picture them together again, romping through the tall grass surrounded by love and light.
Lily's passing left a big hole in our hearts, and the grief comes in waves. Our way of honoring Lily is to continue enjoying life and the adventures she loved. So we're heading to the high country to meet Jonty and Janet for some outdoor therapy. Jesse's leery. He's nervous in the van because it makes lots of noise, and he's just such a sensitive dog.
No, and he would always just be touching Lily. That seemed to give him comfort. So he'd lay on her and he'd sit on her and he'd just be in her face. She was the most tolerant dog on the planet to put up with him, but he's having to learn how to navigate without her. So he's having his own journey.
Yep.
While Janet was running a 50-kilometer high-altitude race, we opted for a casual hike with Jonty through the wildflowers.
Gotta show you this place. We just drove up the road a ways with about 150 side-by-sides and four-wheelers. But now we're on a hiking-only trail, and this is the area.
Jonty's back for another video.
I am. Different activity this time, but still cool hanging out with Matt and Christina and Jesse.
And Jesse.
Yeah, it's nice to be off the road.
Yeah.
It is. So Janet's running this 50K. At the rate we're going, we're not going to be back when she gets done. She'll probably be done about 1:30. But so she'll cross the finish line without our support. But she does so many of these. She said that's no problem. But we'll see her when we get back to camp.
With your hand on your heart, please tell
What an awesome hike. We just had to stop at this creek. There's all this amazing moss growing, and we know that there are fairies that live up this creek. So we stopped.
And that's why we hang out with Jaunty.
Hanging out, we're about a quarter of a mile or less from a beautiful lake, but look at all these columbines in this meadow.
Therapy.
Ta-da! Your hat looks so dorky.
You can't put a dork in a hat and not have it look dorky. Oh, we're ready to head back down.
We
It's been a
are.
lovely stay. It's been good for my soul.
Yes. Get a little.
If you like this video and want to help support our channel, you can send us some love by clicking the heart below this video.
Good morning.
Well, Matt and I are just enjoying a wonderful, peaceful morning, sitting outside the van, listening to the birds chirping and the river running nearby. It's just so peaceful to just get away for a little bit.
So I got up this morning. I woke up about 5 o'clock and hung out in the van just a little bit. Jaunty and Janet woke up again to go for another run. And this time Jaunty's running, and he's running the Kendall Loop, which is up, let me see if I can show you this peak right behind me. That peak right there. And I'm not sure how far that is, but Janet, because she ran the 50K yesterday, is only going to run the 11K today. She is such a monster. She is just loves to run marathons and has been doing it forever. Yesterday evening, we just had a wonderful evening with them. Janet was pretty tired after running a 50K, and she was telling us about going up over California Pass, which was kind of the highest point on that whole run. But you get up to what you think is the summit, and then you go downhill and you start downhill, and then all of a sudden she said you're running back uphill again, and there's another like 2 miles before you actually get to the summit. She said that was the hardest part. But then she came back and got in the river and sat in the river, and I didn't know this was a thing. She sat in the cold water for 12 minutes. She said people will sit in cold water for an hour and just cool down, and that really helps the recovery time. But boy, it's a chilly river. This is snow runoff still. So I'm going to start making breakfast here in a few minutes. We're going to enjoy breakfast, hang out, and then we haven't decided yet whether we're going to go for a walk or just go home. We've got lots of things to do at home, and but it's so beautiful up here. and homegrown mung bean sprouts. Oh, that's good.
Well, even though we're on a bit of a short leash these days with Ivy at home and needing to water the gardens and the house projects, we still needed to get in just one last hike before we head home.
It's just so beautiful up here. We just had to get out and walk the dog and enjoy it before we go home.
I had the pleasure of growing up in these beautiful mountains, and having a channel and creating videos for you guys has really afforded me the opportunity of seeing this place in a more creative way and with even a more open heart. Well, good timing. Look how much the clouds have built just in the short amount of time we were gone. Tut tut, looks like rain.
Boy, after that drive home, my legs are feeling that hike yesterday.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah, we need to do more of those.
Yeah, it definitely feeds my soul.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming along on this short but very sweet little trip. And thank you for all the comments that you've sent in about our Lily.
Yeah.
It was a good first trip without her, but it was hard.
It was hard. I woke up in the morning, had to go to the bathroom in the night, actually. I woke up and expected Lily to be laying there between the seats, and she wasn't there.
Yeah.
And just...
She would have loved the hike. Thanks so much for all your love and support, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yep. Bye-bye. I just want to take this opportunity to acknowledge Christina for the incredible job she does editing these videos. And if you want to see a sample of those, look here or here. And also, I want to acknowledge her especially for this particular video. This was the hardest video Christina has ever had to do. It took so many takes for her to get through that voiceover without just breaking down, because this is such an emotional, touching subject to her heart. So thank you, Christina, for doing this.